I'm not gonna lie to you when I say that I think the show Ted has been a saving grace the last couple of weeks. So, I recently went through a bit of a job change. I was working for one company and I left to find a new adventure in my actual career path. If you're new to the channel, I actually work in IT and I just like really talking about movies. I could probably do some kind of IT channel, I just choose not to. Movies is something I feel like I'm a little bit more knowledgeable in, even though my general career is information technology. But yeah, I started this new job and it's been a bit difficult to just kind of get used to it in a way. I don't usually like doing a lot of job changes. I'm very much a person who likes staying put where I am and getting comfortable and setting roots and not doing all of the. There's some people out there, they'll change jobs 2, 3 times a year, sometimes once every year. It's not me. And the last company I was with for 5 years, the company before that, 12. Like I don't really do a lot of moving around. And this one has kind of put me in a weird state, and that's why I haven't actually been able to do a video in a while. I've only been able to really push out some shorts I've been working on, which are just clipped from other videos I've done. And, when days are harder and stressful and I'm just really, really tired, you try to find, nonsense to kind of allow your brain to kind of rest and bring yourself down to earth a little bit. I wish I could even say I resorted to video games, but even that felt sometimes daunting because I sat there and I would go, shit, I want to play a video game, but I shouldn't play. I should really be doing some work. And then I'd have that battle around and it just never did anything but, just go to bed early. And, sleep is good, but sleep is only good when you're not exhausted and you're mentally drained from long days of a really stressful job. And not to get too much into the whole job thing, because what I really want to talk about is the nonsense I'm referring to. And essentially, the nonsense for me was either a mixture of just completely random YouTube rabbit holes, one of them being, binging more Dropout content. I don't think I've ever really spoken about how much of a fan I am of the Dropout channel. I enjoy that channel thoroughly, and I've just been binging a lot of the Game Changer and Make Some Noise episodes all over again. Those have been helpful on tougher nights. I've also just been kind of resulting to doom scrolling, unfortunately. And then I found some solace in the show Ted. And I found that solace for two basic reasons. Number one is I did see the clip of the newest season where they did have an episode with Brennan Lee Mulligan. And that's why I'm tying it into this, because that's kind of was like, oh, maybe I should give Ted a chance just so I can make it to this episode. And then I brought it up to a friend of mine and he was like, Ted is a fantastic show. You should totally watch it. And I never gave it a chance because I just don't understand how they were able to kind of make a series about Ted. The first movie was great. It should have sort of been left alone, in my opinion. I think I fall in line with most of the other people who don't really like the sequel. I don't necessarily think the sequel makes anything different in all actuality. The first one was just perfect by itself. So I'm a big fan of the first one. I do love anything that's created by Seth MacFarlane. I happen to enjoy Family Guy to this day. I'll watch every new season that pops up. And I never really thought that a Ted series made any sense to me, so I never watched it. But I finally gave it a chance, and it's hysterical. It has points where it's just completely bananas, and I think the other thing that I really should have taken away was just the character that Alana Ubach plays of the mother, the Susan character. I've loved her since Waiting, and everything she pops up in is just fantastic. When she plays the hooker that Frank tries to marry in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the exotic dancer from the Meet the Parents film, she does one of the voices of, I want to say it's the dead great grandmother from Coco. Just anything that she kind of does or anything she gets involved in. And I didn't even realize that like Waiting was the first time I noticed her, but then it was pointed out that she also has been acting for so much longer that she's in Sister Act. Did you know that? She's in Sister Act too. She's the one, the really tiny one with the reddish, blondish hair. She's the one that sings The Love Boat. I never knew that until very recently, and I think that's just fantastic, and it just makes me appreciate Alana Ubach even more. So having her in the show was great. The Ted character is, of course, funny at moments. Other times, it just feels like it's kind of this really pushy, kind of stereotypical stoner-esque story type arc in a way. But I think that's what I really loved about it, because I needed that. I was at a point in my life where I really did need just stuff to be nonsense, of stuff to just not make sense. I needed to feel some kind of joy. So there's more of an appreciation I have for it, even after all of the cliche parts are kind of thrown out the window. And I do see that there is sort of some place where this makes sense in a way, because they always talked about in the films about how Ted came from John wishing him, and then that wish came true and he became alive, and then just showing those teenage years of John and Ted being together makes a little sense, just to the extent of making it fit with the other two films. So at some point it's got to lead off into where the films kick off on, and that's where the second season actually did. And I don't believe they're working on a third. I believe I read something about how a third might not be in the works. Hold on one second. Okay, so I was wrong. They are not working on a third season. There is no third season of live-action Ted prequel series is currently in the works. Creator Seth MacFarlane has stated that there are no plans for season 3 because the show is incredibly expensive to produce. $10 million an episode? $10 million an episode? I don't even think HBO has that kind of budget to make one of their friggin' shows. $10 million an episode just to CGI Ted the way they did. Not gonna lie, the CGI for Ted is perfect, but he's just one character. I guess maybe it's because he's so heavily detailed that he feels alive in the scene, so I guess the money's worth it, but whoofa, $10 million an episode. That means, I think it's 16 episodes, so it cost $160 million to make that show. No wonder there's only 2 friggin' seasons, and that's why they ended the second season the way they did, because why not just end it and save some of that friggin' money? $160 million? I think that's pretty much the budget of what it costs to make one Iron Man film. So you could have made 2 Iron Man films on just the budget to make 2 8-episode seasons of a random show that's a prequel to a film that also has a sequel that isn't even that good. I believe the Ted series is vastly better than the sequel to Ted. When you're thinking about Ted as a franchise? Yeah, I guess Ted's a franchise now. So when you think about that as a whole, the Ted series makes more sense. Going back to the beginning and showing them younger makes a little more sense. I would even take, if they ever thought about it, going back even a little bit further than that. Let's go to the actual first year and all of the stuff, because Ted always talked about how when he was famous, he was doing all the stuff with celebrities and everything like that. It was part of the film's backstory. It's also part of some what they talk about character building in the show. Why not just go back to that? Why not show that first year of Ted being alive? I would watch that show, especially considering how well this show turned out to be. And, I guess I can understand if it's $10 million an episode, why they wouldn't. That's just crazy to me. Crazy. I don't even know if that's as crazy as when I was doing the video on Wake Up Dead Man, because those numbers were shocking to me. These numbers are even crazier. Here's his perspective. It's cheaper, or it was cheaper, if I remember the numbers correctly, it was cheaper to do Wake Up Dead Man than it is to do 2 seasons of Ted. That is insane. But yeah, this is going to have a small place in my heart, just because Ted really helped get me through the last couple of weeks, and I just finished it a few days ago, and I really have to give it its due. I'm very much been proven wrong about how I really felt about the show, and how I thought maybe it was just nonsense and they just keep trying to just make money off of this idea, where the first time you thought about it, yeah, it's a cool idea and it makes perfect sense. The movie was hysterical. And then, why would you keep trying to make it work? This talking vulgar teddy bear can only be funny for so long. But you kind of catch most of the episodes, and probably due to the friggin' budget, most of the episodes don't even 100% revolve around Ted. There are more side character storylines going on than anything that Ted really has to get involved in. And everybody else in it is fantastic. The whole cast really does a fantastic job in the show. I mentioned Alana Eubach just because I appreciate her more so than the rest of them to an extent. I don't really know the actor who played young John Bennett, who's the Mark Wahlberg character. I don't know him all that well. But he does great. He's really like good. He has good chemistry with the CGI bear, and he's good at acting in a scene where it feels like there's a thing that doesn't exist and making it feel like it does exist. I think he does tremendous with that. And then, of course, you can't hack Scott Grimes playing the father. He's hysterical throughout the film. The whole dynamic of Susan and Maddie Bennett is just really hysterical. And those two have really, really good chemistry, and they do it very, very well. And then there's Georgia Wingham, who plays Blair Bennett, the cousin, who lives in the house too. And she is just this interesting piece to add to this family because they're like your typical 90s Boston family. And then you have Blair who comes in and is more liberal in a way, where like liberalism wasn't as heavy as it was back in the 90s, or at least it wasn't like in your face sort of how it is now, how it's always liberals versus conservatives. This is kind of it kept it in the household. So it's interesting to see these household dynamics shift between them, where you have Maddie the conservative and then you have Blair the liberal, and the way they like sort of counteract each other in certain ways. It's just very interesting. Like there's a whole episode where he has a heart attack and he can't be stressed, otherwise he'll have another one. And it's right around the time of the O.J. Simpson trial, and so they try to hide the fact that O.J. was found not guilty because it would drive him crazy and make him have another heart attack. So Blair doesn't want to do it because she thinks the lying part of it is wrong. You shouldn't just make up this whole world to just trick the father. And she eventually tells him, and what happens? He has a heart attack. It's just very interesting how they play off these storylines that are both, I guess racy might be a good word, or just, teetering the line of just uncomfortable or just downright, pushing the boundaries of what you can actually make fun of. But it's in like the 90s setting. And then, of course, every now and then throughout it, they popped in a nice little old 90s TV commercial, and I thought that was great. Just to see those commercials again, it was just hysterical. But yeah, I have to give Ted credit. He definitely was a show that, like, if you go into it not appreciating it for its silliness, then you're probably not going to enjoy it. And I really needed silliness, and it came through. And thank you, Ted. You were definitely something I needed the last couple of weeks, and I appreciate you for it.